saying that he's serving his term under the most severe administrative measures in maximum security.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 20 notorious criminals who are currently housed inside inescapable maximum security institutions.
His brain is definitely wired differently. He's a psychopath.
Sirhan Sirhan.
On May 18th of last year, you were sitting and writing in your room.
They're the writings of a maniac.
They're the writings of Sirhan Sirhan.
Yes, sir, but they're not the writings of me now, sir. I'm not mentally ill, sir, but I'm not perfect either.
One of the most infamous assassins in modern history, Sirhan Sirhan was responsible for shooting Senator Robert F. Kennedy on June 5, 1968. While Kennedy survived the initial shooting, his injuries were too severe, and he died the next day at Los Angeles' Good Samaritan Hospital. Sirhan was originally sentenced to death, but this was commuted to life in prison following a landmark court case in 1972. On November 22, 2013, coincidentally the 50th anniversary of the death of Robert's brother John F. Kennedy, Sirhan was transferred to the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility outside San Diego, where he remains to this day. Funnily enough, Sirhan was actually granted parole in August 2021, but this was blocked by California Governor Gavin Newsom.
This one's more impactful because it has an impact around the rest of the world. It's impactful because it had a direct impact on 11 family members, 11 children of Robert Kennedy. Changed the course of history.
James Marcello.
Was he convicted under the statute that Davis was talking about, the Supreme Court was talking about? Can it be applied retroactively? And it wouldn't make any difference to him anyway, because his crimes were so serious, they could easily have yielded a life imprisonment sentence, even without this.
The Chicago outfit has a long and storied history, dating back to 1910 and once being led by famous mobster Al Capone. Fast forward a number of decades to the early 2000s, and the outfit was being led by one James Marcello, aka Little Jimmy. Marcello was a central target of the FBI's Operation Family Secrets, and was ultimately convicted on many serious mob-related charges, including racketeering, conspiracy, and involvement in multiple murders. He is currently housed inside ADX Florence, a notorious Supermax prison in Colorado that is virtually impenetrable, and which houses the most dangerous criminals in America.
Judy, James Marcello has had multiple mob nicknames. He's always favored Jimmy the Man, but at age 76 and residing in the nation's toughest prison, perhaps lately he's felt more like Little Jimmy, the name many of his underlings dared to use behind his back.
Damian Williams.
What was it like 30 years ago?
Well, it was something you simply never forget.
You might not know the name, but you probably know the crime. On August 29, 1992, Los Angeles was in the midst of the famous Rodney King riots when truck driver Reginald Denny was pulled from his vehicle and beaten on live television by a group now called the LA Four. This group contained Damian Williams, who was affiliated with local Crips. Williams became nationally recognized for attacking Denny, and especially for throwing a cinder block at his head and knocking him unconscious. Williams served 4 years in prison for the assault, but he struggled to stay out of trouble and was later convicted of murdering drug dealer Grover Tinner in 2000. He is currently serving 46 years to life in California State Prison, Centinela.
Within seconds, his door was ripped open. Mr. Denny was pulled from the vehicle, and he was beaten. He was kicked.
James Holmes.
For a lot of survivors that I talk to, it's like on that day, the day that's the anniversary or tragiversary as some people call it, that's the day they just want to shut down and quiet out the world and not talk to anybody.
On July 20th, 2012, dozens of people packed into Aurora, Colorado's Century 16 movie theater to watch The Dark Knight Rises. Unfortunately, that's where James Holmes decided to enact a horrible plan. Suffering from severe mental illness, Holmes entered the theater with multiple firearms and canisters of tear gas. He threw the gas into the crowd before opening fire, killing 12 and injuring 62. 8 more would become injured while attempting to flee the theater. Holmes pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but his defense argument didn't work against the jury, and he was given 12 life sentences plus an additional 3,318 years in prison. He is currently held in USP Allenwood in Pennsylvania.
Convicted murderer, theater shooter James Holmes sentenced to more than 3,300 years in prison today. That's on top of the 12 life sentences he's already serving. The judge sentencing Holmes to 48 years in prison for each count of attempted first-degree murder, 32 years for each count of second-degree attempted murder, and another 6 years for the booby traps he left in an apartment.
Gary Ridgeway.
You are a loser, you're a coward, you are nobody, you're an animal. These are relatives of victims of the Green River Killer.
May God have mercy on your pathetic soul, because the rest of us who know the truth about you won't.
One of the most prolific serial killers in history, Gary Ridgway was known as the Green River Killer and was convicted of murdering 49 people throughout the 1980s and 90s. However, his true body count could be much higher, with Ridgway himself claiming to have murdered 71. Regardless, Ridgway was given 49 life sentences, one for each confirmed victim, and is imprisoned in Washington State Penitentiary. Given the nickname The Walls, Washington State is an enormous and historically violent prison that dates back to the 1880s. It even housed Washington's death row inmates and carried out its executions before the state abolished capital punishment.
Now, no death penalty in the state of Washington. Governor Jay Inslee today signed away capital punishment, making permanent the moratorium on executions that he ordered back in 2014.
David Burkowitz.
They all bought it, David. Didn't they? Even the shrinks. Especially the shrinks.
Another notorious serial killer, David Burkowitz is perhaps better known as the Son of Sam. Between July 1976 and July 1977, Burkowitz terrorized the already gritty streets of New York, targeting and shooting random people with his .44 special caliber Bulldog revolver. 6 people were killed in the shootings, and many more were injured. As a result, Burkowitz became the target of the largest manhunt in the city's history. They finally caught him on August 10, 1977, and he pleaded guilty to 6 counts of second-degree murder, resulting in 6 consecutive life sentences. He was moved around various New York prisons, including Attica, which he referred to as, quote, a nightmare, and is currently imprisoned in the Shawangunk Correctional Facility.
People will never understand where I came from. No matter how much I try to explain it, they wouldn't understand what it was to walk in darkness.
Ramsey Ysef.
One World Trade Center, New York City. Friday, February 26, 1993. The basement garage was a scene of utter destruction, cloaked in thickening smoke.
A notable terrorist, Ramsey Ysef is widely remembered as the main perpetrator and mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. On February 26, 1993, Ysef and accomplices parked a Ryder truck loaded with a homemade bomb in the building's underground parking garage. The resulting explosion killed 6 and injured well over 1,000. Despite the massive damage, Ysef failed in his primary goal, which was to completely collapse the North Tower, thereby killing thousands. He was finally captured after years on the run and was given 2 life sentences plus 240 years. He is currently inside ADX Florence, in a cell block commonly known as Bombers Row.
3 months after their convictions, on May 24, 1994, Judge Kevin Duffy sentenced each bomber to a year in prison for each year of life he had deprived the victims. It came to 240 years apiece, with no possibility of parole.
Eric Rudolph.
Eric Rudolph is not a folk hero.
He has not been proven guilty.
He's nothing more than a cold-blooded murderer.
Joining Ramsey Ysef on Bombers Row is Eric Rudolph, the perpetrator of the Centennial Olympic Park bombing. The 1996 Summer Olympics were being held in Atlanta, and Rudolph saw an opportunity. According to his manifesto, he wished to, quote, confound, anger, and embarrass the Washington government. So, he targeted Centennial Olympic Park with a homemade bomb, killing 1 person directly and injuring 111. The damage would have been much greater if it wasn't for the efforts of security guard Richard Jewell, who noticed the suspicious backpack and helped clear the surrounding area. Rudolph committed additional bombings in Alabama and Georgia before he was caught and arrested. He was given 4 consecutive life sentences.
And I believe he will be taken with no confrontation. It might be a year from now, or it might be tomorrow. I don't know. But I'll assure you, he will be caught.
Mark David Chapman.
This evening, John Lennon arrived at the emergency room at the Roosevelt Hospital. He was dead at the time of his arrival.
December 8, 1980. As John Lennon entered the archway of the Dakota, Mark David Chapman shot him 4 times from behind. While Lennon was rushed to the hospital, Chapman stayed behind, calmly reading a book until the police arrived. Unfortunately, Lennon did not survive the trip to the hospital. The world entered a period of mourning while Chapman went through rigorous psychiatric evaluations, with many experts finding him mentally ill. However, Chapman pled guilty, believing that it was the will of God, and he was given 20 years to life. He spent most of his time in Attica, but he transferred in 2022 to the maximum security Greenhaven Correctional Facility. He has also been denied parole 13 times.
I was standing there with a gun in my pocket.
Knew you were going to shoot him?
Sorry?
Knew you were going to shoot him?
Absolutely.
Dzhokhar Tsarnaev.
Come on out! Come on, Dzhokhar, let's go!
Tamerlan Tsarnaev and his brother Dzhokhar planned and orchestrated the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. The brothers placed 2 homemade pressure cooker bombs along the finish line, both of which successfully exploded. 3 people died in the initial bombing, and hundreds more were injured, many catastrophically. A giant manhunt for the brothers then occurred throughout the streets of Boston, resulting in further deaths, including that of Tamerlan Tsarnaev, who was shot by police and run over by a fleeing Dzhokhar. Dzhokhar was later caught hiding in a boat and was convicted of a slew of crimes, resulting in his imprisonment in ADX Florence. He is currently being held on the prison's death row, awaiting execution.
Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is suing the federal government for $250,000, claiming his treatment at the federal Supermax Correctional Complex Florence has been unlawful, unreasonable, and discriminatory.
Richard Reed. Infamously known as the Shoe Bomber, Reed is a British terrorist who, in December 2001, attempted to detonate explosives packed into the shoes he was wearing while on an American Airlines flight from Paris to Miami.
Today, and it changed the way we travel.
And it wasn't caught by the FBI or CIA, but instead by a South Florida flight attendant who blocked disaster.
This attempt was thwarted by the vigilant passengers and crew members on board.
And I said, "Excuse me, sir, what are you doing? What are you doing?" He ignored me. I asked him almost 3-4 times, and he ignored me. So what I did is I just grabbed him and pulled him.
Following his arrest, Reed was tried in the United States on charges of terrorism. He received life without the possibility of parole and is currently incarcerated with many other highly dangerous criminals inside ADX Florence. This facility is renowned for housing inmates requiring the highest level of security and is often where individuals guilty of the most serious offenses in the U.S. are placed.
The word hero is too big for me. I'm just a person who was given a task and I did it. I think that it's going to take more than a terrorist to just stop my life.
Robert Bowers.
As we think about those 11 people that were killed there in Pittsburgh in the synagogue.
On October 27, 2018, Robert Bowers stormed Pittsburgh's Tree of Life or Le Simcha congregation during Shabbat morning services. He opened fire inside the synagogue with 3 handguns and a semi-automatic rifle, injuring 6 and killing 11. Bowers was mainly motivated by far-right nationalist ideologies, including deep-seated anti-Semitism and a belief in the white replacement conspiracy theory, which posits that Jews are replacing white populations with non-white immigrants. Bowers was apprehended following a shootout and was convicted of 63 federal crimes. He is currently on death row at USP Terre Haute, awaiting execution, with Joe Biden having refused to commute his death sentence to life in prison.
Their jury decision was unanimous in voting for Robert Bowers to be sentenced to death. The aggravating factors that Bowers caused injury, harm, and loss not only to the 11 victims, but their family and friends as well.
Alec Murdoch. This former lawyer from a prominent legal family in South Carolina became the center of a high-profile case that captured national attention.
The legacy and legal influence of the Murdoch family in southeastern South Carolina dates back to the early 1900s.
In 2021, Murdoch was convicted of the murder of his wife Maggie and their son Paul amid a web of financial fraud and misdeeds.
In the murder of your wife Maggie Murdoch, I sentence you for term of the rest of your natural life.
His trial unveiled a shocking narrative of deceit, financial desperation, and ultimately violence, leading to life without the possibility of parole. High-profile inmates like Murdoch are often placed in maximum security to ensure their safety and prevent escape, although they may be transferred at a later date as circumstances dictate.
Would you ever do anything to harm Maggie?
I would never hurt Maggie.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Often described as the mastermind behind the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, Mohammed remains detained at Guantanamo Bay's Camp Delta.
By his own words, he said he was responsible for the 9/11 operation from A to Z. That was in a 2007 confession.
His role in planning the attacks that led to the death of nearly 3,000 people and caused extensive destruction, including the collapse of the World Trade Center towers, places him at the center of one of the most significant terrorist plots in history.
Today he appeared with 4 others accused of training the hijackers, helping financially, and finding flight schools for them.
Arrested in 2003 in Pakistan, Mohammed has faced various charges related to terrorism and murder. His detention at Guantanamo, a high-security military facility, reflects the extraordinary nature of his alleged actions and the ongoing legal and ethical debates surrounding the treatment and rights of detainees in the context of global terrorism.
Of nearly 800 men and boys who've been detained at Guantanamo Bay, 39 remain. About a quarter were cleared for release as far back as 2010, but are still waiting to leave.
Dylan Roof.
The suspect in Wednesday night's deadly church massacre now in custody.
Roof was found guilty for the racially motivated massacre at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015, where he murdered 9 African-American churchgoers. This heinous act was intended to incite racial tensions and violence. Roof, who embraced white supremacist ideologies, was found guilty on 33 federal charges, encompassing hate crimes. In 2017, he received a death sentence, marking a rare federal execution order aimed at denouncing racially motivated violence.
The first person in America to be given the death penalty in federal court for a hate crime.
Roof's incarceration on federal death row under maximum security conditions is not only a consequence of his acts, but also serves as a stark reminder of the deadly impact of hate and bigotry.
The U.S. Supreme Court rejected his bid to have his conviction overturned. He can still pursue other appeals, though.
John Floyd Thomas Jr. One of Los Angeles' most prolific serial killers, Thomas Jr. was arrested in 2009 and linked through DNA evidence to a series of brutal murders spanning several decades.
This is a scary story, people. LA's most prolific serial killer may have been caught.
His crimes mainly targeted elderly and vulnerable women in the Los Angeles area. His method of operation typically involved breaking into the homes of his victims, where he would then attack and murder them.
The murder victims in all cases under review were older white women, most of them lower-income widows living alone.
Thomas Jr. was convicted of multiple counts, and this shed light on a series of cold cases that had remained unsolved for years. Thomas Jr. was incarcerated in a maximum security prison, reflecting the threat he poses to public safety. Terry Nichols.
On April 19, 1995, a rental truck filled with homemade explosives detonated outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City.
This co-conspirator in the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing is serving multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole at ADX Florence, the aforementioned maximum security federal prison. The bombing, one of the deadliest terrorist attacks on U.S. soil prior to September 11, 2001, resulted in the deaths of 168 people and injured over 600. Nichols received federal and state charges for conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction and involuntary manslaughter.
In 2004, he was tried again on state charges in Oklahoma and convicted of 161 counts of first-degree murder.
His incarceration at ADX Florence, known for its stringent security measures, is indicative of the perceived ongoing threat he poses.
Even decades later, Americans still try to find rationale and reason, an explanation for acts of senseless terror, and hope that they will never happen again.
Dennis Rader. The BTK Killer carried out a series of murders spanning from 1974 to 1991.
I am BTK. I'm the guy they're after.
His criminal activities caused widespread fear and garnered extensive media coverage, particularly in and around Wichita, Kansas.
I really feel pretty good. I feel like I'm kind of like a star right now.
No remorse, little emotion.
He just talks like he's coming home from a day at the office.
These crimes went unsolved for decades until a renewed investigation, aided by advances in forensic science, led to his arrest in 2005.
The police and a cast of dozens proudly announced his capture to the citizens of Wichita and the world.
He received 10 consecutive life terms and is incarcerated at the El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas, a maximum security prison. This facility is designed to house inmates who have committed serious felonies, ensuring high levels of security and surveillance. Danilo Cavalcanti. This Brazilian national was convicted of murder in the United States and subsequently undertook a daring escape from a Pennsylvania prison in September 2023.
His escape was not seen by the tower guard. That guard, by the way, is on leave and being investigated.
He was deemed guilty for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, which authorities described as an attempt to silence her from revealing his wanted status in Brazil for another murder. Cavalcanti's escape prompted a massive manhunt involving multiple law enforcement agencies, highlighting the challenges of managing high-risk inmates.
Cavalcanti's capture came after a night of nail-biting tension. He was first spotted around 1 a.m. by a drug enforcement plane using thermal night vision cameras.
His escape underscores the importance of maximum security measures in prisons to prevent prison breaks to ensure public safety, especially with inmates who have a history of violence and flight risk. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Joaquin Guzman. El Chapo was once deemed the world's most powerful narco and is serving a life sentence plus 30 years in ADX Florence.
Like the rest here, segregated and on permanent lockdown 23 hours a day.
His leadership of the Sinaloa cartel involved the large-scale smuggling of illegal substances into the U.S., leading to widespread violence and corruption. Captured in 2016 after 2 dramatic escapes from Mexican prisons, Guzman's trial in 2019 resulted in convictions for money laundering and involvement in organized crime.
He tunneled out of the last Mexican prison where he was locked up and rode to freedom on an underground motorcycle.
His imprisonment under maximum security conditions is a testament to his perceived risk of escape and ongoing threat to public safety.
A jailbreak that no one has ever succeeded in pulling off. And dare we say, probably never will.
You would think not, but he's done it before, as you mentioned, just not in the United States.
Twice, that's true.
Do you think we'll ever see these people again? Let us know in the comments below.
I wish that Senator Kennedy was still alive.